Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. Hope you guys having a suavelous day.
Yeah, and with that, let's commence to pay. Okay,
I'm so suavelous, you so suavelous.
Together we can fix the trauma that's befallen us.
Divine social interactions remains marvelous.
Mind-blowing, suavelicious talk, higher consciousness. But think, let not your hearts be troubled, Dr. Brother Suave.
Divine light get you double.
Greetings, and suave evening. This is Dr. Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, creator, and your host of social therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Oh man, what a beautiful day. But it's a hot day here in the A. Man, it's 78 degrees. I mean, I don't understand. It was a little cool over the weekend and the latter part of the week. Now it's 78 degrees. I don't even know what to say. Had to cut off all the AC, try to keep it at 75. I had to cut it completely off. Had to cut on the AC, to get a little, feeling a little better because it's hot. It's hot. So anyway, this beautiful day, February 22nd, 2023. We're still continuing with Black History Day. I learned so much. It's just so much, and it's evident that we need to educate our own people. It's this critical race theory is so important. It's so important that we learn more about our culture because it seems like every year we find out some amazing things about our people and our accomplishments and their contributions to these United States, not just United States, but the world. We learn so much, and I learn things all the time. And I'm just really, we got to find some way to educate our people because they seem like they're trying to eliminate our history, eliminate us, like the killing. They're just trying to eliminate anything that has anything to do with our greatness. But you know what? Y'all continue to be great. Don't let them stop you because they won't stop me. So anyway, this is season 4, episode 5. We're going to continue with our topic called Who's Your Daddy? So if you missed last week, you don't want to miss today. So make sure you tell somebody, tag them, forward the information. If I tag you or whatever information, please, even tonight, just let people know, forward this information so they can get themselves involved because tonight, you don't want to miss this. It's a very informative and very sensitive topic called Who's My Daddy? And last week was just talking about discussing the emotional and psychological impact that it has on children as well as they develop into adults when they're being deprived of building a relationship or even knowing who their biological father is. And that's as a result of the mothers not allowing them to have that relationship or that opportunity. So listen, we're going to also discuss Stockholm syndrome and discuss how I make the correlation between the two. And so I just make sure you tell people because it's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful and exciting and informative social therapy session today. So before I go on, we're going to do some shout outs. So some February birthday shout outs. So I got a very dear friend of mine. His name is Timothy Clark, man, one of the most impressive people. I know a lot of people, but I'm always edifying him. The man was part of 3 of the best departments in the country: Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, Miami-Dade Correction and Rehabilitation, and Miami-Dade Police Department. The man has done it all. Also has a business degree, entrepreneur, real estate person, just everything, man. Just an incredible person. Also, my beautiful cousin, who's always somebody who always I can go to and talk to, always keeping me updated with family information and news, and just always someone I can always talk to. And it's been like that our entire lives. And then her birthday was just on Monday. Happy birthday, cuz. And also dear friend of mine and colleague, the Black Love Doctor, one of the greatest relationship coaches and therapists and counselors in the country, great author, Dr. Aaron Torpo. His birthday was on the 19th. And my beautiful Aunt Judy, her birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday, early. And I will be calling you, Auntie. Excuse me. And it's a young man. I mentor him. Sometimes we have great dialogue, conversations. Very wise young man, a great father. Just always listening, very humble. His birthday is this coming Friday. I want to tell you happy birthday, Robert. And my cousin. His birthday is this coming Saturday. Happy birthday, cousin. And one of the people who's responsible for me being an author, lecturing, being exposed to a lot of people, was very instrumental in everything I've done, taught me the business. And so want to give a happy birthday to Les Brown. He's also my frat brother. And he's very responsible for the things I was able to accomplish. And also, last but not least, another person who was very instrumental in mentoring me and teaching me some things, and just always gave me his ear. And as high as a person, international hero, a national hero, an icon in the United States, my frat brother, rest in peace, Congressman John Lewis. Happy heavenly birthday. His birthday was this past Tuesday. So I just want to give this February birthday shout outs. Appreciate you. So tonight, again, we're going to be going on the topic that I started last week, and it's part 2, who's my daddy. And so again, we're going to be talking about this because it's something that, again, a lot of people don't want to talk about. They want to be held accountable. And the reality is, there's only one person responsible. This is not, again, as I said last week, this is not a bashing of mothers, but mothers are the only one that holds the key to a lot of children when it comes to them understanding. Like the old saying, mama's baby, daddy's maybe. So at the end of the day, a child wants to build a connection with their biological mother and a biological father. And sometimes when there is some shady business going on and issue, say sometimes poor morals or embarrassed and just lack of integrity, they just don't tell their children. And I think that's just wrong. So I'm not going to bite my tongue because nobody's responsible for that. It's not the uncles, the fathers, the grandfathers, the grandmothers. It is those mothers of those children who are depriving their children from knowing who their biological father is. And I think that's irresponsible. And I personally think it's abuse. And so there was the Stockholm syndrome. And I was making learning, knowing about it. I was like, you know what? I wanted to make a correlation between the two. And a lot of times, as any person in any profession, as you in a profession long enough, you learn to see certain things that you wasn't necessarily taught in traditional education. It's just like the ACEs and psychology we've learned so much. They didn't teach TFCBT when I was in college and grad school. A lot of stuff like the ACEs, those studies, a lot of the stuff didn't exist. And then once you're a professional, you're like a scientist. That's why they had an MS degree, science of this and science of that. And you learn to experiment and learn and how to make things connect. You start to connect the dots as you get more experience in a particular profession. And so I was just wondering, and thinking about trauma, thinking about mental abuse and how people get these emotional attachments to people. And I thought about Stockholm syndrome. So what is Stockholm syndrome and where did it come from? Well, the robbery that named the condition. So generally, this is defined as an occurrence when hostages form these attachments to their captives and begin to have sympathy for them. You hear this? Somebody kidnap you, hold you, abuse you, and you form an attachment to them, and you actually feel sorry for them. So again, this is a little basic example of it. And a lot of criminalists and psychiatrists first coined Stockholm syndrome in 1973. And this was a bank robbery when 4 people was held captive by these bank robbers. And the weird thing was, should I say, the unfortunate thing is that when they were released, they didn't hold any grudge. They wasn't upset with them, and they actually refused to testify against these people. Can you hear what I'm saying? Somebody abuse you, somebody hold you against your will, and when there's a direct threat of harm or any of that stuff, and you're not upset with them, you're not mad at them, and you're actually justifying and defending them. Man, this is crazy. Or should I not say crazy? Because that's what we consider unprofessional, but it is my podcast. So since Stockholm syndrome has been spotted in a lot of different situations, such as sexual abuse, human trafficking, discrimination, and in my opinion, child manipulation, child abuse, systematic deception, prevention from a child seeing or knowing who their biological father is and preventing them to have a relationship with them. And that's normally done again by the mothers through lies and creating loyalty issues. The loyalty things is a lot of psychological, emotional damage, as well as it's legal. But again, sometimes these mothers are not held accountable for this behavior, this unethical behavior, this immoral behavior, and this stuff needs to stop. And I know a lot of times this is, like I said, a very sensitive, touchy issue. But the reality that this stuff happens. And as I talked last week about sharing my professional and personal experience with dealing with individuals who want to know who their fathers are, and they went a lifetime being deprived of even knowing because of the manipulation of some of those mothers, telling them, hey, I love you. And this is how they create these loyalty issues. And so when you look at some of the issues, that some psychotherapists believe that this is some form of coping mechanism and can occur as a result of what the individual experiences. They have feelings of hopelessness and frustration because they can feel hopeless, like, man, I'm never going to know who my father is. I'm never going to find out who he is. I want to know that other side of me. My mom's never going to tell me. She's not going to ever let me have that conversation because she's going to shut it down real quick. And that's frustrating to me. It's frustrating that every time I try to bring it up, she won't let you have that conversation. It could be very frustrating every time that I go on this chase. I come at a dead end, and then the person, the victim, goes back and asks their mother, bam, what happens? She's frustrated because guess what? The mother's going to come up with another name and send them. And it's just like, you know how sometimes when you just want to shut somebody up, you just say something. It's the same thing. They'll come up with another name so they can just get away from it and tell the person, oh, your father's this person, and send a person. So that has to be, again, emotional, psychological damage, but it's also frustrating and lead to a lot of signs of hopelessness. So now the victims, they don't necessarily agree with that tactic, but a lot of times, what else can they do? You know, the oppressor sees them every day, face to face as they're growing up. And so this is what happens. So this is how that dynamic is formed, because these victims are seeing the only person they have who showed them love, provided them clothes, provided them with shelter, you know, but also provided them with a lot of deceit. And so these mothers spend a lot of time and sometimes try to make themselves seem like they're the good person, but reality, they're not. They are a very, in my opinion, an evil person, a very selfish person, and a very manipulating person. So these children have no knowledge how to have access to their biological fathers. So gradually, the victim views that mother as just generally a good person instead of a villain. Because again, I'm not trying to demonize the mother or the mothers. I'm trying to demonize the behavior that only the mothers can only do. It's just like a lot of times when people who love to do bad things and like to make themselves a victim, and I try to bring this up specifically to like Christians, and they when I talk about like God loves us all, we are His creations, but He hates the sin that we commit. He loves us, but He hates the sin. So when I'm talking about these issues, we all love our mothers. We all love our fathers. We all love our friends. We all love our associates. But we hate the actions that they do. So again, this is not a bashing. This is an issue of accountability, and it needs to be addressed. So again, these people see them as a good person, but the reality is they are a manipulating person, and it creates a lot of issues in their life. So when it comes to the Stockholm syndrome, there's a dark side, and the dark side is that when I was talking about when those victims got released, the dark side is that they didn't have a problem with, they didn't agree with it, but they supported the behavior and they didn't testify. And so what it does is create a lot of symptoms, such as like compassion for the people who cause harm or those abusers, the refusal to admit that that person who abused them done something wrong, the flashbacks of the event, they become aggressive, become depressed, having issues of guilt and PTSD. So you see how there is a direct correlation. So if you have this person, this mother who's abusing their child by not allowing them to have access to their father, by telling them, think about it, they end up feeling sorry for them instead of the mother feeling sorry for the child or how they treated them. They can't sit there and hold their mother accountable for their wrongdoing. They have flashbacks of all the rejection, all the manipulation, all the intimidation, and then they don't become aggressive with them. They become aggressive with people in their lives, such as their significant other, their husbands, friends, and associates. That's like displaced aggression, displaced anger. Those are the things, because again, they treat those people bad, but they don't address the villain. They do not address the person who created this issue in their lives. And that creates a lot of guilt, because then they start holding themselves feeling guilty, like they had something to do with it, and they're not. And if you have experienced this, trust, you are not the person. You didn't make yourself come in this world. It's the parents who have an ultimate responsibility to be transparent and share and open and protect you. And you should never feel guilty about any of this. And also, again, PTSD. You're going to experience this because it's traumatic. It's traumatic and it's ongoing, unfortunately, with some of these people, because they want closure. They want to go and find out who their father is. They want to know who these people are. They want to know. So what I do is suggest that, again, get some treatment and try to address these issues, because it's very emotional. It's a lot of damage and a lot of healing that needs to go on. And unfortunately, the big thing about the thing is dependency. They sometimes feel they can't survive without their mothers. Again, that's the only person they have. So if you're a child, they're providing all your basic needs. You don't have anybody else to support you. So again, you're holding on these people because they're the only one you have. And if you're a child, who do you have? You don't have anybody except that single parent is providing you with everything that you think you need, but they're forgetting a very key element: the love, the nurturing that's done by the other parent, because you should not be deprived of that, because that you're entitled to that. It's just like it took an egg and a sperm to create you. Well, you should have access to both of those individuals who make that physical and biological contribution to you. Okay? So hope you see where I'm going, because this is why I use the term child abuse is systematic deception, because the abuser really, really does a head job on their children. And these children eventually grow up and become adults and continue to struggle with Stockholm syndrome. And it's just sad, because again, they grow up and become adults and still having these struggles. And so when they get a certain age, they're going out there to search. Sometimes they go a little while and just suppress it, but eventually it'll surface, because it's something in them who wants to know who's their daddy, who's their father. They want to make that connection. I mean, it's no guarantee that they just want to spend a whole bunch of time and just do. They want to know because there's a big void there, and they need to know. So, a little side note: in a situation about hostages dealing with Stockholm syndrome, there is about 92% when these individuals who've been captured, they do not have any empathy or sympathy for those individuals. But again, you have to look at each situation is different, but you also look at these are individuals who've been so traumatized, they have normalized and are pretty much in denial about the trauma they have experienced. It's like someone having psychological, emotional issue or psychiatric issues. If you had to give a test and write something about, do they feel they need service or do they have mental health issues? They're going to say no. So I think that contributed to the 92%. And so a lot of times, but at the end of the day, guess what? They still going to exhibit some of those characteristics of these behaviors. So you have to be mindful of that. How you doing, Brother Vanlis? Thank you. So be mindful of this. So let's wait. I would like to discuss how I relate Stockholm syndrome to my topic. Who's my daddy? So who's my daddy part 2, should I say? So have you ever heard of the term battered woman syndrome? See where I'm going? And how this person who's been abused, neglected, treated bad has this unremarkable connection and tie to the abuser. The guy could be beating the brakes off her, abusing her, calling all kinds of names, destroying her character, self-esteem, self-worth, everything. She's still staying there. He can be beating her up, and she just happened to call the police. Police get there, what she do? No, don't mess with him. He's a good person. You see where I'm going? See the connection? And it's sad. Same thing with these people who've been beaten all the time. See the parallel. They have head jobs done. And they end up being a head case as a result of not getting the treatment. And these people manipulate them. This is why I say systematic deception. And this is also the gaslighting. Same thing. So here, these victims have so much emotional attachment to their abusers, they defend their actions. As I said, same thing. The next thing, the trauma bond. You know, when you watch these movies, it's just so funny how we get programmed by watching movies and doing these things and how we are impacted. And they making these things appear to be so romantic. So when you watch a movie, you have these two individuals don't have anything to do with each other. They despise each other, or they just colleagues. But you know how they write it. So like a movie, you can have like 10 main characters. And as they gradually get killed off by some monster or some supernatural force or some catastrophe, what happens? That person has saved that person a whole bunch of times. And the situation is very traumatic, very chaotic and everything. What happens? At the end of the day, these two people who had any interest in each other, end up being being bonded as a result of the trauma that they experienced. They didn't have any, they didn't ever take the initiative to want to date and do anything. But sometimes these people have these trauma bonds with these abusers. And again, the same thing. Somebody hijack a plane. They treat everybody like crap and everything, abuse them. And you find yourself defending these people. And these people are very manipulative. And what they do is find ways to keep information from you. Same thing when the hijackers or the bank robbers, they don't want the news on. They want everything off because they want to not provide you with access to information that can empower you. Same thing with some of these mothers who are doing it. They want to not tell you anything about your biological father and not let you have access to information that may be empowering. You know how sometimes they try to exploit people or prevent you from having access to them. So maybe you may be exploited. But again, this is what I'm saying, the manipulation. So for years, these victims, they just accept it and they never hold the perpetrator, the abuser accountable. I'm going to say that. And they believe that the abuser loves them and have their best interest. But again, this is a lot of programming. So don't get me wrong now. I by no means think a mother does not love her child. I just think she's irresponsible. Because I mean, she gave birth to her. She took care of her. And I know sometimes it could be by default, but I would never take the issue of love away from them because they love their children. They just irresponsible and sometimes have something to hide. And they're just full of manipulation and lying and abuse, and so, and that's unfortunate. So it has a child feeling so much compassion towards this oppressor, this abuser, is that they just feel they have this need to justify and defend the actions of their abusers, just like the battered woman syndrome. Okay, so I'm going to look at Jay Pitts. Hey, how you doing, brother? Thank you. It said identity is everything because knowing where you come from gives clarity and understanding how you are and who you are, but also what you about to become, what you're about to become. Exactly. Because again, sometimes people have no clue, but this is important that you know. And not knowing creates so many distractions in your head because you could be seeing a lot of people go on things, doing some powerful things, some great things, and you're motivating, you're trying to do that. But the distractions, like where did I come from, and create self-esteem issues, and you start having self-doubt, feeling you're not worthy of having any things. And sometimes you just look at that, and that's really, again, psychological, emotional damage that has been done by those mothers. And I'm like, man, that's why I say it's a void. And nobody's responsible for that other than these mothers. And again, I'm talking about accountability. I'm not bashing. And again, if this is misinterpreted, maybe you want to seek some counseling. And so you can get your own private therapist and they can help you understand some of the poor decisions and some of the damage that you have done to your child. Okay. So again, and so this thing creates a lot of issues. Trust, it creates a lot of issues. So what we're going to do, take a break and go into station identification, and we'll be right back with Who's Your Daddy with Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard?
Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Tonight's topic, who's my daddy? Again, we're going to transition into the second half dealing with fear and attachment. Again, I'm hoping that you guys get something out of this. Make sure you tell your friend, share, subscribe, and a comment. This is a very sensitive topic. I know sometimes people are silenced by things that they identify with, things that trigger emotions, things that trigger trauma, and things that they just want to avoid and pretend it's going to go away, but it never goes away. It's important to get closure if you can. And a lot of times these victims don't get a chance to get closure because they never really get a chance to find out who their fathers are. And then if they do, they find out that they're past. So they never get a chance to have a conversation of face to face and find out what was the issue. So again, the fear and attachment. So sometimes these victims are constantly dealing with fear of being rejected. So that's why they don't say anything all the time. They feel of being rejected by the only person that they know, the only person who provided food, shelter, and clothes for them. So the fear of being yelled at, the fear of being cursed out, the fear of being told you don't need to worry about that. The fear of just having the anxiety of being able to bring it up because it means a lot to you. But just the fear of being rejected each and every time that you try to ask your mother about what's going on. And then these issues of attachment, being attached to the only person that showed you love and showed you, again, provided you with food and clothing. But as a lecturer I had a long time ago, I don't know what state, but it was talking about dark love. And this is, when again, you have this love for a person who abuses you, love for a person who treats you like crap, love for a person who neglects you. But again, dark love, again, the trauma bond, the no matter how you're treated, it's like breaking a circle of causality. The more they treat you bad, the more you ask for forgiveness. And the more you ask for forgiveness, the more they treat you bad. It's like somebody has to break that circle of causality, and that normally has to be by the victim, because the perpetrator, the abuser, they're going to continue to do it. They're going to continue to manipulate. They're going to continue to lie. So in order for that circle of causality to be broken, you have to do it. You have to go ahead and seek services, seek treatment, and just hold them accountable and trust that they're not going to be honest with you. Okay? So this is what happens, this dark love. But again, that's for another topic, another day. So you can imagine all the guilt and depression that these poor individuals are experiencing year in and year out. Is just so sad, so unfortunate. And the unfortunate thing is that fear keeps these people compliant. Again, you remember I say the battered woman syndrome? If she's getting the brakes beat off of her every day, she's going to be compliant. Again, fear. So you can imagine these extreme levels create this illusion of love and attachment to these oppressors. And so again, you getting treated like crap. They're beating you up emotionally and psychologically, and you're going to be compliant because you don't want to be yelled at, you don't want to be beat, you don't want to be criticized, you don't want to be tormented. So think about the psychological damage these mothers are doing to these children, not allowing them to know who their daddy is. So, excuse me. So again, I say it creates this illusion of an attachment to the oppressor. So, and what happens is not the abuser, but the victim has so much and high levels of sympathy for the abuser. They feel sorry for them, and sometimes they feel guilty, like they had something to do with it. And they started feeling like, and guess what? The manipulators, the abuser is going to continue like, oh, wow, they feeling bad. And they're going to play on their emotions. They're going to find something to just throw a little, um, throw something in the game. Like, reason I don't tell you who your father, you don't want to know because never mind. They play little head games and they try to make that victim seem like they have something to do with it. And then they end up playing victim. And again, very manipulative, very evil, and very wrong. So the manipulation of the oppressor in these cases, again, is the mother. And I have to say it, like any topic, I'm always going to go back to home, and so we have to talk about this. So although there's no threat of being killed or harmed or being held captive by these mothers, they are held captive in their head. They're held captive in a sense where they don't have anywhere to go because they're children. So even when they become adults, remember trauma? When you're trauma, you have early childhood trauma, you experience that, you go right back to that childhood stage. You go right back to the place that you received trauma. So if you had this experience in this traumatic situation growing up, being deprived of knowing who your father is, every time you try to address it, it comes right back up. And so you start feeling the same way over and over and over again. So again, there's no threat. So even when you are an adult and you can move out on your own, you still, again, it's no literally, you're not captive, but you actually captive here. And you always see, we all seen these children who have been emotionally and psychologically abused by their parents. They can tell them anything. That's why those mothers create those problems between their children's wives or husbands. They play these games with these children, and they have them locked. And so they're like, well, okay, mommy, you get it, okay, mommy, okay. They don't like adult up and say, hey, mom, you boundary crossing. This is my wife, this is my husband, this is stuff, and you can't do this. When I was a kid, I had to be compliant. But because these people who can stand up, they address their trauma, they address their issues. But the people who haven't, they're going to continue to go right back to that childlike state. That's so unfortunate. So again, this is the psychological and mental fear that this fear that they have of their mother, and it's always exists until they get treatment for it. And in most cases, they are dependent on them for their basic needs if they never ever develop and go outside and be independent. And again, sometimes they do it through financial means, saying, hey, I took care of your whole life, but I always got you. Because again, they're trying to distract them and manipulate them, saying so that the victim can feel that they always love them and they always got their back, and they are the only one they need. But again, a person needs both parents, This is again, and so they do it as they become adults because they still like children, developmentally. So trauma, again, these people are experiencing a lot of trauma, and the unfortunate thing, trauma has a way of keeping a person in that place, and that's the sad thing. See, when they first experience trauma, it's like, wow, they keep them in that place because that parent's going to go right back, and the kid's going to be like, well, should I say the adult? And that's just unfortunate. So we all can see how many adults act when they're around these abusive parents, And like I said, it's just like the Stockholm syndrome. These parents try to withhold a bunch of information so that they can keep them children or these adult children in the same place and keep them as victims, And this is just, and these techniques are basically the same as a manipulating parent and an abuser, or a person who hijacks or hold people in captivity. It's the same techniques. So again, this was something it was very touching, or should I say very sensitive topic. But again, Dr. Brother Suave has never, ever been afraid to address issues. I mean, I'm an author. My first book was Lust Child, Children Born Out of Lust and Not Love. Hey, is not a subject that I'm uncomfortable talking about, because the reality is transparency equates to empowerment. And so we get empowered when we address our traumas. And so I hope that you guys learned something tonight. And please, mothers, if you're experiencing this and continue, just have a real honest conversation with your children, so your children can be liberated, exposed, because it's not about you. You have to take your children and all the trauma that you have caused on their lives. Do it for them. You love them, and I know you love them, but do it for them. Put the ego aside, put the pride aside, and just have a real conversation with your children. Allow your children to know who their fathers are and stop holding them captive. So if you learned something and you appreciate tonight's dialogue, cash out me at Suave R Walker, or you can DM me at brother.suave. My Facebook is Suave R Walker. You can inbox me, or you can go to brothersuave.com, or you can call me for any services, trauma service or life coaching services at 704-630-2904. And just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
We're shining bright, and we're shining the light on us like no other. Neighborhood Planet, our neighborhood, our world. Programs like this are made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, iBoosters Digital Media Creative, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers like you. Thank you.